cloud. And then I'll start letting people
in. Yay, there's Brian.
Hey.
I'm going to pin you.
Last thing, can I cut out tomorrow afternoon since I worked forever on Tuesday?
Yes. Yeah,
I will be loyal to you next.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Morning.
Oops, that took away there we are.
Okay, let's see. Can you see my screen, Sarah?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. I guess we'll give it a second just in case anybody wants to join.
Yeah. And actually, while we're waiting for people to join, if you want to share in the chat section where you are, where you're located, where your bar is. I personally can probably tell you where many of you are, but you probably don't know where each other are from. And so we'll kick that off in the chat. And then also, while you're in there, if you would mind sharing kind of what you hope to get out of today's presentation, and perhaps what prompted you to show up this lovely Thursday. So many good familiar names that I haven't even seen in a while. So Roger, haven't seen you in a while. Excited to have you here. Paul's trying to believe in mindset. It's funny. It's like a unicorn.
That's funny.
Denver, Dallas, ooh, Minnesota.
All right, let's see. 11:02. Sarah, you think it's good to go ahead and kick off or give it a few more?
Yeah, sometimes it takes a minute just to get Zoom to like do its thing.
Okay. Yes, Brian. Oh, we have another Dawn.
Yeah, Don Reagan. I think Don maybe joined sometime in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, sure.
Sarah from Santa Cruz, California.
New Orleans.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, I can totally remember when I first started Bar Magnolia. And I had a bunch of little businesses before that, you know, just like little side hustle things where I'm like, hey, I've got a business, like buy my stuff. And then I kind of birthed Bar Magnolia, and it felt so big, like so much bigger than and I didn't feel qualified to like be her steward, which honestly, if you have kids, I've been telling Dom, like, I don't feel qualified to be the steward of my youngest child. She's so big. And that's how I felt about Bar Magnolia. And like, I used to feel so weird, you know, like introducing Bar Magnolia to people, because it was like, yeah, I've got this like little business, but I knew it wasn't little, like it felt big. It felt big. And so like, it took a while and some work for me to be like, no, I am the CEO of Bar Magnolia. So I'm there, right there with you. And Ellen, apparently. And Tiffany in New Orleans, love New Orleans.
Brand new.
Yay, welcome, Sandy. Kenesha, that's such a cool word, Kenesha. Let's see. Yeah, we'll give it till 9:05 and then we'll get started. And I've been monitoring the Facebook to make sure that the people who wanted to come in through there don't have any questions. We seem to be good.
Perfect. Okay. 11:05. Everything's on silent.
Yeah.
All right. Yay.
Well,
Good morning.
let me start by
Go for it.
introducing you because I haven't still done that. It's on my to-do list, and I'm just the biggest asshole sometimes. But many of you know Dawn. If you went to camp, she was one of the presenters, and she talked about business boundaries at camp. She also is a co-coach for the Achieve Group program. She came on as COO. Oh, here comes Brittany. She came in as COO of Mobile Bev Pros probably about 6 weeks ago, right, Don? Maybe 8 weeks ago.
6 to 8. Yep. Somewhere in there.
Yeah, and so we have been just crushing it on the back end, doing all sorts of big things, some of which you've started to see kind of come out a little bit, but much on the agenda specifically for June and July. And so this is the first Dawn-led initiative that we are lucky enough to behold here in Mobile Bev Pros. She has been my coach since January of 2021. And it's just such a joy and an honor to have her as part of Mobile Bev Pros and for her to be able to share kind of her magic and her infinite mindset perspective with all of you. So I'm personally very excited to have her hosting the Imposter Syndrome webinar today. And it's just the beginning for Dawn. So if everyone will give her a nice warm welcome. Dawn, take it away.
Yay. Thanks, guys. I'm glad to be here. So I'm going to have the chat closed. So Sarah, if you want to interrupt me, like
Yep.
if there are any questions that come in, feel free to do that. I'm actually going to close my face as well so I can see what you guys are seeing. So today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Dawn. It's so nice to meet all of you. And it's an honor to be serving Mobile Bev Pros through the guise of mindset and alchemy. And to get started, I want to let you know what you can expect today from the webinar. So we're going to be defining imposter syndrome. I was surprised I actually got a lot of questions around what is it? So I'm going to be telling you exactly what it is. For those of you who are experiencing it, you probably know exactly what it is. And I'm going to tell you how common it is, as well as some of the ways that imposter syndrome shows up. And how to overcome or cope with feeling like a fraud. And then at the end, we're going to have some time for Q&A. So just to let you know a little bit about me, and Sarah did a great job of introducing me already, but I am a mom of one. I'm a gamer. I like to game. And I'm an avid researcher of all things metaphysical. That's my absolute passion. I also geek out over all things consciousness and mindset. And I really mean that. Like I geek all the way out. I could do this 24/7 and never get tired of it. I was coaching corporate leaders in mindset, leadership, and operations since 2013. So I've been doing this a while. And I've been entrepreneurial coaching since 2018 when my daughter was born. So I left the corporate hustle and grind for probably a lot of the same reasons that you guys have or are looking to create that life of freedom and to be my own boss. And I've helped hundreds of leaders to create deeper alignment and integration while removing internal and external blocks to success. So today I want to give you guys some of those tools around imposter syndrome specifically. And Sarah already asked you to introduce yourself, but if you haven't, let us know where you located, who are you? I want to know how long have you been in the mobile bar industry? And then of course, any specific questions you may have already came with around imposter syndrome or mindset. And just to get started, we're going to define it. Imposter syndrome: the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. I liked the Wikipedia definition a little better. They define it as a psychological occurrence in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. The reason I like that one a little better is because it seems to fit what we're actually experiencing when we're experiencing imposter syndrome. It's that fear that like we're going to be found out any day. They're going to figure out that I'm just not worthy to be here. So, and how common is it? 82% Up to 82% of people, particularly high achievers, are struggling with feeling like a fraud, even though they're highly qualified to be doing what they're doing. You have Maya Angelou here. She says, I've written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out. And guys, you'll see a lot of these little quotes as we move forward from just some of the greatest minds in history who also felt this way. So you're not alone. How many of you are experiencing imposter syndrome specifically around your mobile bar? Let me know in the chat. Liquor infused we serve. Yes. Yeah. At 11:11, Sarah said 11:11 my time, I guess. Sarah said yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's super common, super common. So just to go over some of the ways that it shows up, continue to drop your questions in the chat if you have any. I like to call the voice in your head the saboteur. And that saboteur is constantly saying things to you like you're not good enough, you don't deserve success, you need more money, or you need to lose more weight, or you need more achievements, you need more certifications before you are worthy of actually showing up and owning your business and your magic, because this is more than just about your business, right? This is about who you are as a person. And the saboteur is really great at convincing us that we need to continue to play small. So that's the little voice in your head. That's the number one way I think that imposter syndrome shows up. It also shows up as overworking to prove your worth. So for anybody who's working themselves into burnout, or they have a really hard time at the end of the day, like turning it off, and they just never feel like they've done enough, that's also a form of imposter syndrome. Perfectionism. Perfectionists, raise your hand. Me. This is one of the ways it shows up for me personally. Focusing on flaws or reinforcing failure, rather than, that the idea of like, oh, embracing failure as a learning opportunity. If you're in imposter syndrome, you're just like, oh, of course I failed. I'm not good enough. I knew I couldn't do it. Right. And so that's focusing on the flaws. Perfectionism is another way. Difficulty delegating or asking for help, right? And this goes for the perfectionists in the room, if you struggle to assign tasks to others because you feel like you need to be in control of like what's going on or of the task at hand, that's a form of imposter syndrome. The constant need to consume knowledge and information. Again, raising my own hand. This is another way that it shows up. For those of you who are feeling this, it looks like, constantly taking more certification courses, constantly feeling like you need to be self-improving or healing or reading more, practicing more, right? Like you're always consuming more knowledge and information. Feeling like you don't belong, that feeling of unworthiness. And then blocking praise or using minimizing language, and I have body there in parentheses because this could look like, for my avid I'm sorryers out there, right? Like I have a friend who we're just in the grocery store and she's just existing. She's just existing. Someone walks by her and she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Like, what are you sorry for? But we do this, right? We use minimizing language. We apologize for existing. We block praise. So when someone says something like, oh, you look fabulous today, you might say like, oh, I need to wash my hair, right? Or like someone says, gosh, you did a really great job at that event. And you say, oh, well, we got really lucky because there was, right. And so you're blocking praise. There's a lack of receptivity. And so all of these are just some of the ways that imposter syndrome shows up. It shows up, guys, differently for everybody. It's totally unique to you, but just to give you an overview so you kind of know what you're looking for. I'm going to check the chat here. Is it bad if you have all of these? No, but you're in the right place. Yeah, you need more proof. Sarah, that's such a good point. So part of the saboteur part of that like vicious saboteur cycle in the brain is that you need more proof before you can move forward. This can look like, collecting all the details before you're allowed to show up. It can look like looking out into your world for proof of success before you've really taken any action to succeed, and then deciding that you're a failure because that proof is not there yet, right? Proof is something that the saboteur absolutely requires. And unfortunately, it's something that we have to create before we actually have it. And so he always has fuel for his fire as long as we don't have that proof. Let's see. Blocking praise is my superpower. Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about I'm going to give you some tools, how to overcome / cope with imposter syndrome. And like, Dawn, why did you use the word cope? I'm not a huge fan of the word cope, but I had to use it for imposter syndrome. And the reason is because it does not actually go away. Nobody likes to hear that, but it's the truth. Imposter syndrome is not something that goes away. It's something that sticks around for all of your days. And actually, if you've ever heard the phrase "new levels, new devils," that's imposter syndrome, right? I mean, to a T, because the more success you gain, the more that saboteur is trying to tear you down and tell you that you're not worthy of that next level of success. So our best defense is not in fighting it, but in accepting it for what it is and deciding to show up anyway, right? So this tool, acceptance, I use for absolutely everything, but specifically around imposter syndrome. Anything that you're fighting, anything that you're pushing is pushing back at you just as hard. So when we're resisting that voice in our head, we're like, trying to suppress it. That's a great way to say it. Suppressing it, or like pretending it doesn't exist. Unless you've moved through accepting that voice, then it's going to keep coming back, and it comes back stronger every time. And so it's important that you start to see it with acceptance on the front end. That's the very first step to overcoming any mindset issue or any healing issue, but especially imposter syndrome. What we resist persists. Acceptance transforms mountains into molehills. So start with acceptance. Here you have a Michelle Obama who says she still has a little imposter syndrome. It doesn't go away, that feeling that you shouldn't take me seriously. What do I know? I share that with you because we all have doubts in our abilities and about our power and what that power is. So again, guys, you're not alone. Super common. The second step is going to be, and these steps can be used interchangeably, you want to identify and recognize it again without judgment. This is the piece about acceptance, right? We have to recognize it without judgment. This looks like getting to know your saboteur, which is really the voice of all of your shames and fears, right? So you want to get to know it without judgment, just like you would a little kid, right? Like if a small child came up to you, for any of you who are parents, a small child comes up to you and they say like, "Mom, I'm not feeling good enough. Dad, I'm not feeling good enough today." You wouldn't be like, "Well, you're not." Like you you would probably like, sit with them and say like, "Well, where did that feeling come from? Who told you that?" Or okay, well, how can we move past this, like, and offer them some tools, some encouragement, right? And you want to be doing the same thing for yourself. You want to be breeding that self-compassion. And so get to know your saboteur without judgment. Just recognize it at first. That's the best key, is just to recognize when it's coming up. You say, "Oh, hey friend, I see you. Thanks for showing up today." Know that it's not your voice. It's not your voice. So you want to identify it, but you don't want to identify with it. Guys, most of the time, the saboteur is the voice of your parents when you were a kid. It's the voice of teachers. It's the voice of previous coaches. It's the voice of, maybe church leaders. That voice is not your voice. It's the voice of the limitations that were imposed upon you, generally between the ages of born to 7 years old. Any limitations that were imposed there, and then on and on and on. But those tend to be the heaviest hitters. So it's not your voice. Again, important to identify it, but don't identify with it. This voice is not yours, right? And when the feeling or thought arises, allow it. Ask it questions as you would a small child. I kind of covered that just a second ago. And know that the more familiar you become with this voice, the less power it holds over you in the long run. So I'm going to pause real quick and check the chat and see if anybody has any questions so far. Seeing a competitor as successful so you can't be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, comparison is a huge one. Comparison is huge. Yes. Trying to keep you safe, but not going beyond what you know is safe. Yeah. So that's the other thing. And this is one of the reasons why it's important to see it with acceptance, is because your saboteur is actually there to keep you safe. It's trying, right? So chances are you were 4 years old, you were climbing up to the monkey bars, and your mom was like, "Oh God, don't do that. That's not safe." Right. And from that point forward, you internalize that, because when we're little like that, we're just little sponges. You internalize that. This is just an example. You internalize that. And then now when you try to go for monkey bars in your business, there's this voice that goes, that's not safe, right? Like, you can't do that. And it's trying to keep you from falling on your face. But in reality, it's keeping you from moving outside your comfort zone and into the things that create success. Another tool here is to build vulnerability as a skill. So talk about it, share about it, be about it. It seems like most of us think that we're alone in feeling like an imposter, right? We feel like, it's just me, and we internalize it, and it just grows and grows and grows like this massive beast, and the truth is that when you share it with people that you love, that you're safe with, then it starts to shrink, and it doesn't hold as much power over you, because part of the saboteur's power move is that you're going to internalize it. You're going to believe it. You're going to keep it to yourself, and you're going to think, no, this is just me. I'm all alone. And you're going to be isolated. That's what it wants. It wants you to be isolated. And the truth is that the more comfortable you can get in being uncomfortable and sharing the things that you're ashamed of, sharing the things that you're fearful of, the more you build that community of people who can help to build you up. Which leads us to the next point: build support systems, right? Who can you reach out to and feel safe? And this is important, right? Because if mom thinks it's a really bad idea for you to start a business, we probably don't want to reach out to her when we're feeling like we're inadequate to build this business. The important thing to note, guys, is that you have to be careful of who you're sharing with, because people are we're all guilty of this, but we're going to impose our own limitations on others, right? And so if they don't believe that they're big enough for success, and you come to them and you say, girl, I don't think I can do this, they're going to say, yeah, you probably can't, right? Like, yeah, that's going to be too hard. You might as well just give up, right? And they might not say it exactly like that, but so be really diligent in selecting who you can reach out to and feel safe, that's going to uplift you, that's going to like inspire you and remind you of the powerful being that you are. Another one, a great support system, is to move your body. So the saboteur imposter syndrome happens in the brain. It happens in your head. And so anytime you need to get out of your head, because it can also lead to analysis paralysis, right? It can lead to like overthinking, is to move your body. Get out of your head, move your body. That looks like dancing. It looks like taking a nice warm shower or a cold shower. That'll absolutely get you out of your head. It looks like grounding. Go outside, stand in the grass, go for a walk, go for a jog. Sarah's an avid jogger, right? So move your body to get out of your head. This one here, shout affirmations at your saboteur. This absolutely works, but it only works after acceptance is established. So you can't bypass the acceptance piece, because otherwise then you're just suppressing it. You're just trying to drown it out. And that's what actually makes it stronger. And so you can create powerful affirmations, but only after you accept it, and only after you identify and get to know the root cause of that voice, right? Create and review an I'm the shit list. This is one of my favorite moves for the SAB, because the saboteur is going to come in and say, you're not good enough. You've never been successful. And you can pull out your I'm the shit list and be like, yes, I was. Look at this time in the 6th grade when I did this. Look at this time when I was in college and I did this. Or look at, for me, I gave natural birth at home, no medication. And like that one always shuts the SAB up. You know what I mean? Because I am that bitch. And so you have to have an I'm the shit list, so that you can review it whenever you're feeling low, to remind yourself how absolutely powerful you are and what you're capable of. Chris Yami says to share your weakness is to make yourself vulnerable, and to make yourself vulnerable is to show your strength. I'm going to check the chat real quick. Shake it off. Yeah, literally. You can do hard things. It's true. I love you can do hard things. That's one of my favorite little quotes. I don't know if, who said that. Maybe it's just an anonymous quote, but it's super powerful. I can do hard things. Self-love and compassion. Guys, self-love, oftentimes when we talk about self-love, people think of like, getting a pedicure, or I don't know, affirmations written on your mirror, and those can be great too. But what I'm actually talking about is really true love, which includes things like patience. Be patient with yourself. Tenderness, right? Allow yourself to be wherever you are. If you're feeling shitty that day, like allow yourself to be in that space and feel all the feelings. Don't try and jerk yourself out of that space because you think it's unproductive. If it's what's required of the day, if it's showing up, it's what's required of the day. So practice being patient with yourself, tender. Acceptance, there's that word again. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is a really powerful tool, and you can use this to diffuse almost anything in your life. And you might not think of it as something that you need forgiveness for, but sprinkle that on everything. Sprinkle it on everything, because forgiveness for yourself, self-forgiveness, just tends to diffuse. I mean, most of these big SAB voices, it's say you're not good enough because that one time in the 3rd grade you wore that thing and they made fun of you. And you can forgive yourself for judging yourself when you were in the 3rd. You can forgive yourself for caring what other people thought of you. And you can take that as deep as you want. Compassion, right? Be compassionate with yourself. And then grace. Give yourself grace to be where you're at, to be in the learning stage, to not be as successful as you want to be, but to know that you're on your way, right? And remember that practice makes perfect-ish, because this isn't something that goes away. And so we're not aiming for perfection. We're just aiming for better. We're just aiming for more healed. We're just aiming for a little more peace of mind each day, right? And release expectations around how long this takes. This is the patience key, right? Lifelong patterns don't change overnight until they do. And when I say until they do, I really mean that, because there will be a day where you've practiced self-love and compassion, and you look back and you go, oh my gosh, I haven't been biting my nails. Oh my gosh, I haven't been smoking cigarettes. Oh my gosh, I haven't been, whatever, insert destructive habit here, right? Like, whatever it is, you'll just wake up one day and you'll be like, wow, that just no longer serves me, and it's gone. But in the meantime, it's important that you're practicing the patience and the acceptance and the forgiveness, and releasing expectations of how quickly it goes away. A lot of times when we have destructive patterns, we want them to end right now, right? We want it just to be tomorrow. We want to wake up and have no internal destructive monologue, and chances of that happening are slim. So they didn't happen overnight, and they're not going to change overnight. All right, I'm going to check the chat. Yeah. So Sarah says, will I cover the power of saying you versus I when talking to yourself? So you guys have probably all seen the infamous I am, right? As a mantra. I am is super powerful. But actually for saboteur was programmed by others, right? So programmed by parents, teachers, trusted loved ones, whatever, friends. And when they were speaking to you, they were saying, you are, not I am. And so you can begin to reparent or repattern some of these thoughts processes by saying you are to yourself. So instead of saying, I am safe, which is a really powerful affirmation, you can make it even more powerful by saying you are safe, right? Because the way that it was programmed was through you are and not through I am. And guys, this is super powerful. This is super. Do you guys have any favorite affirmations that start with I am? If you do, try them with you are, like right now, really, like try it with you are and see how it feels in your body, because you'll feel it. It's a totally different ball game when you say you are. And then if you want, share them with us in the chat. Yelly Belly says, I find that my brain comes up with so many things I should do. Should is one of my favorite words. Expand this product line or try these types of events so much that it's overwhelming and none of them get done. Yes. I can't understand if the saboteur is throwing so much at me that nothing gets expanded or grown, or if the saboteur is preventing me from trying one new thing at all. Both, Yelly Belly. I hope I'm saying that right. It looks like Yelly Belly. It's both. The saboteur is strictly there to prevent you from moving forward at all. And so it doesn't want you to try new things. It doesn't want you to get anything done. It doesn't want you to expand or grow. And it doesn't want you to try anything new at all. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's both of those things. And the saboteur, that's its whole purpose, to keep you in your box. It moves down from your head to your heart. It's so amazing. Right. Sab wants you to stay right here. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't want expansion at all. Yes, my name is Yelly. Company is Yelly Belly Chocolate. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Okay, so decide and embody.
Don, before you keep going,
Yeah.
I got a DM that talks about, it was like a joke when you said something about don't resist it, and they're like, except, resist like tacos. And I was like, oh, I gotta ask Don to talk about resistance, because like resist nothing, right? And you talked a little bit in the beginning, and I think this person came on a little bit afterwards. But if we could go a little bit deeper into resistance, because we have been conditioned to believe the best way to overcome like any patterning. This actually for Paul, like we're giant supercomputers. We're literally just a bunch of programs that we do on repeat. Whether it's drinking your coffee every day, or when someone says this is how I respond, or like we're just a giant computer. And so we've been conditioned to believe that if we just resist that programming, that we can then change that habit. But I just love the way that Dawn talks about the better alternative to resisting. And so I was hoping you could speak on that, because no, don't even resist the tacos.
Yeah, don't resist the taco at all, because if you resist the taco today, you want it even more tomorrow. You know what I mean? And then if you resist it and this is why willpower, like, and I talk about this a lot, under the guise of like diet and exercise, because it's something I think a lot of people can relate to. When we resist, we crash, right? Like you can lose 15 pounds by like not eating any of your favorite foods and like willing yourself to go to the gym every day, even though you hate it. You can also lose 15 pounds by being in total acceptance of what you're putting in your body. And that's why I say that acceptance is the number one tool to alchemy or transformation, metamorphosis, because anytime we're trying to change something and we resist it, we change it through resistance, it may change for a short time, but because we resisted it, because we did it out of brute force, out of fighting it, it's absolutely fighting you back. Like anything that you push on is pushing you back just as hard. And so when we accept who we are exactly as we are right now, it seems like that fight just sort of like diffuses. It just sort of, I don't know if you guys can see me. I'm doing a thing with my hands, like like it falls away. Yeah. So acceptance is a far more powerful tool than resistance. We don't want to resist anything, because anything that you resist, it's like a rubber band. That's the best way I know to describe it. It's going to pop back at you, and it's going to be just as hard or even harder than the last time it popped back at you, right? So we definitely don't want to resist. Sarah, did that cover that for you?
Yeah, I mean, specifically for resistance for me, the way that I envision it, because I'm like a visual, if I resist programming, so I'm like, I'm not gonna have coffee. I'm not gonna have coffee. It doesn't get rid of the urge for the coffee, and that urge will never be gone. Or for one of my favorite examples, because recently we've been talking about the difference between someone who just doesn't drink and someone who's sober, like self-identified as sober. And
Yes.
so people who are self-identified as being alcoholics, they solve their alcoholism by not drinking. They go to meetings every day. They're constantly talking about the fact that they are an alcoholic and they don't drink anymore. Like they're on the wagon. They're a recovering alcoholic. They're now sober. But we have learned through the group program that people who self-identify as sober and people who just don't drink any longer, or people who don't identify as someone who drinks, there's a very different mindset. Whereas people who just don't drink, they can still go to bars and they can hang out and they can be around people who drink, but people who are sober can't. They can't even be around it. They can't look at it. Everybody has to like remove the alcohol from the house when they're around because they're in constant resistance to it, instead of someone who's choosing not to drink or is basically repatterned that behavior and being acceptance of the fact that like once upon a time I drank, but I'm not that person anymore. They repatterned. But when you self-identify as someone who's a drinker and is refusing to drink, then they're perpetuating the rhythm and the pattern of drinking. They're just not partaking. So to me, the difference, and you already mentioned like repatterning, the difference is loving yourself so hard to know that once upon a time you had a pattern that included drinking, that you don't identify with that any longer. It is not who you are. It's not what you do anymore. And so because it's not who you are, it's not a pattern that persists because it's just not who you are. So that's kind of like how I see it. And so like,
Yeah.
don't resist the tacos. Eat the tacos until you're sick, right? And then be like, is that a good decision? Like maybe I'm not that person. Maybe I'm not the person who eats tacos till they're sick.
Yeah, exactly. And guys, it's kind of it's not counterintuitive actually, but that's the word that I wanted to use. So I'm going to use it. It's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because like if you want to stop drinking coffee every day, and you like, okay, well, stop drinking it, right? Versus allow yourself to drink as much coffee as you want, then you're like, well, how does that solve the problem? And I saw somewhere just recently where someone said healing any pattern isn't about like becoming the better version of yourself. It can't be. If it is, then you're in constant resistance to who you are right now, right? Versus healing, what healing actually is, or repatterning actually is deciding that every version of you deserves love, respect, compassion, acceptance, patience, forgiveness, right? And so the version of me that drinks coffee every day, she also deserves my respect. She's not a lesser version of me. She's absolutely worthy of everything that she desires. She can be just as successful the way that she is. And so there's something really powerful in allowing yourself to drink that cup of coffee, because that's where I said one day you just wake up and you're not a coffee drinker anymore. It just like happens and you didn't have to do anything about it. You know what I'm saying? And then like if you pick up a cup of coffee again, you don't have to go back to that same place of like resisting it, like, oh gosh, I can't do this, I can't do this. You can just say, oh look, there's that pattern again where I just love coffee every morning, and then eventually you diffuse again back into a tea drinker. And so acceptance is super powerful, and I can't overstate that enough. Like it
Can I
is the
share
medicine.
can I share a personal story before you move on? I
Yeah.
promised to. Okay. So Don actually used this example earlier, but repatterning starts with self-acceptance. And then what happens is it starts to pull up, maybe consciously, maybe not consciously, why you have that pattern to begin with. And then you
Mhm.
can work on the reasoning. So for example, I've been a nail biter since I was a baby. Since I was a baby, almost 40 years of biting my nails. And I never really thought too much about it. It was just a thing that I did when I was thinking or when I was stressed or like whatever it was. And like 2 months ago, I just woke up and I just didn't bite my nails anymore. That just wasn't who I was. Like I have nails for the first time in my whole life. And I can't tell you why that happened, except for the fact that I've been working on loving myself exactly as I am. And so like one day I like went to put my finger in my mouth, bite my nail, and I was just like, yeah, I don't do that anymore. Right. And so like it doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm trying to stop biting my nails. It can just be, I'm here for the whole healing journey. I'm here for all of the things that created the patterns that I currently have. And if you can just love yourself in every moment, eventually some of those things that you thought were like some of the least desirable things about you may just kind of fall away, because you realize like that was a coping mechanism for a thing that you were resisting or that you were pushing down. Like I just let myself think now. I let myself be agitated or anxious instead of like fighting it down, being like, don't be anxious. Like it's a process of love and acceptance. And the result is that you get to be exactly who you are in every moment, whether that's beautiful to you or whether that's like less than beautiful. And then before you know it, some of those less than beautiful things just start shifting.
Since we're speaking to a group primarily of entrepreneurs, like, why are you on this journey? Because you don't like having a boss, right? That tells you what to do all the time. And so it's the same in your journey, right? Like if you're like trying to will your way through it, like giving yourself like, don't do this, don't do that, I can't do this or that, then like that's the same reason you don't want to work at your 9 to 5 anymore. You know what I mean? Like you don't like being told what to do all the time. And so there's something different in just letting your inner child get on the monkey bars and fall flat on their face and accepting that for what it is, versus like instilling in them that now they're not safe because they failed. You know what I mean? And not allowing them to do that anymore. So the last section here, I believe it is. The last section here is to decide and embody. And this is the second biggest key aside from acceptance. Confidence is a skill and it's learned. It's not something that we're born with, despite what we may think. There are not people. I saw a great quote from it. I can't even remember the quote now, but like Lady Gaga pukes before she gets on stage because she doesn't feel like she's worthy. She doesn't feel like she can do it. Like she literally is physically ill before every show. And she's not the only one. Like so many great rock stars do the same thing where they're fixing to go out on stage and they're just like super sick because they just feel like, I can't do it. Today's the day they're going to figure it out. You know what I mean? And so you're not alone. Confidence is a skill. It's learned. It's not something that people just naturally have. And it's actually something that people can act through, right? Like you could take acting classes and learn how to pretend to be confident, like, and you wouldn't have to have an ounce of confidence in your body. So confidence is a skill, and it's learned. And then actions speak louder than words and internal monologues. So like this is do it scared. Massive imperfect action is absolutely the medicine for saboteur. Saboteur says, oh, you can't do that. 110%. If you take that first 3 seconds, saboteur says, you can't send that email. Send it, hit send before it lets you like talk yourself out of it. Just hit send. Because then what you're dealing with is the aftermath and you're not like in analysis paralysis. And so take the action. That's a huge catalyst. You take the action, then you deal with the fallout, right? Which 9 times out of 10 isn't nearly as bad as the saboteur had you believe. It actually moves you closer to success. So take the action. Action, action, action. And this is key for perfectionists, right? Because the perfectionist we need to know all the deets before we jump in. We need to have all the information gathered. We need to do more research. We need to check our bases. And then before you know it, I think it was Yelly Belly that said it earlier. Forgive me if that's not who said it, but we just end up doing nothing. Like we just end up like spiraling and doing nothing. And then our inspiration becomes anxiety, right? And so take the action and then there's nothing to even think about. You know what I mean? Because you can't stay in analysis paralysis after you've already taken the leap of faith. Be unavailable for comparison to others. This is a voice that you can start to recognize and just decide that like that's not a true voice. Anytime that it's like, oh, they're in the same city as I am and they're already taking up 75% of the market, who am I to come in with pretty much the same services and be successful? Nope, unavailable. I'm just unavailable for that conversation in my head right now. I comparison is something that you can just be like, nope, and we're not in resistance to it. Okay. But we're also just not listening to it. We're just not here for that. Celebrate failures as hard as you celebrate wins, right? This can be huge. Like, pour yourself a glass of wine and cheers to you because you learned something today, right? Because you sent the email and your SAB said, don't send the email. You sent the email and you didn't get any inquiries back. Cool. Now we learned something, right? Like, maybe we need to change the subject line next time. So celebrate your failures because they teach you something. A lot of people have a hard time celebrating their wins. And so if you have a hard time celebrating your wins, you're probably not celebrating your failures. And this is massive alchemical action. Celebrate your failures. See them for the worth that they actually hold. And then you can form a self-improvement system, strategy, but you have to do it for the right reasons. Okay. So this is what I like to call the healing hamster wheel. And here I'm just going to insert the self-improvement hamster wheel, which is, again, those perfectionists where we feel like we need more information, we need more achievement before we're worthy. And so that's self-improving for the wrong reasons. That's self-improving because we need it, because we're unworthy without it. Whereas we can actually form self-improvement strategies because we're worthy of it, because we desire it, because it would just be freaking awesome if we had that certification, because it would just light us up. Right. And so if you're going to continue self-improvement, make sure you're doing it because you're worthy of improving yourself and because you desire it and not because you feel unworthy without it. So that's the wrap up, guys. Now it's time for Q&A. So feel free to drop it in the chat. I guess you guys can unmute yourselves, right, Sarah? Just now's a good time for conversation. We have quite a bit of time left. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, so we've got 14 minutes left. We do have one that was dropped in here that I think that is just, I love this question. Oh gosh, where'd it go? Yeah, it's from Yelly again. How do people not have imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think everybody does to some extent, right? They might just not be calling it. You saw that list of like, how does it show up? Somebody might be a perfectionist and have no idea that that's imposter syndrome, right? And so it just shows up differently for everybody. I think everybody probably has it. They just might not be educated enough on what it is to identify it.
Yeah, and also for me personally, like, I recognize imposter syndrome as the thing that it is, right? The saboteur that's trying to keep me small. So if I recognize that and do what Dawn says, so the answer is you don't get rid of imposter syndrome, because imposter syndrome only shows up when you're trying to do big and hard things. If you just did the same thing you always did all the time, you wouldn't get imposter syndrome, because then it's like, there's no reason to be scared. There's no reason for it to be concerned that you're trying to make yourself bigger or that you're trying to grow. So like that, the only way to not have imposter syndrome is to do fuck not, like, just don't do anything. Right. And so if you want to do things, then you're going to encounter imposter syndrome. But doing what Dawn said earlier, that's like, hey, I know who you are and I know why you're saying what you're saying. Like, I totally understand. This is risky, right? Like my kids, like she said, the jungle gym, like my kids, jungle gym, I'm constantly correcting them. Like, hey, like, don't throw sand at people. And like, hey, like, that's a little high. Hey, you're not supposed to use it that way. And so like, there's this saying that's like, let kids do dangerous things carefully. Like, don't tell yourself not to do dangerous things. Just be like, do your due diligence, do what you can, and recognize that like doing big things is always going to be like jumping off a bridge. And you just have to know, like, I checked my rope twice. Like, I'm jumping, but like, everything I can do, I have done, and just calm the fears by saying, I hear you. I know why you're here. I understand you're trying to keep me safe. Trust me.
Yeah. For anybody who hasn't seen the movie on Disney, gosh, what's that movie called? Though it's like it's one of my favorites that my little likes to watch. I can't think of the name right now. I'll think of the name and I'll drop it here. But one of the things that you can start to reframe is being fearful is a really good sign, right? Because like Sarah said, if you're not doing big shit, then you're always comfortable. And so like there's no fear there. So if you're not getting butterflies and you're not feeling like, oh gosh, like this, then you're not expanding, you're not growing, you're not leaping towards success, right? So it's a good sign to be fearful. One of my previous coaches, she called this shit your pants energy. And that's stuck with me, because if I'm not doing something that has my belly all in knots, I know that I'm not progressing. I know that I'm just sitting still. There's no more like expansion happening. Paul says, I have to know all the rules of the game to play. I like to win. Yeah, well, maybe you could win and not know all the rules of the game. Maybe how you win is by breaking or bending some of those rules. Emily says, wow, that's me 1,000 office hours later. Ha ha ha. Do you have any proven mantras that you would recommend? They're specific to you. So how about you tell me, what is the voice in your head saying? And then I'll tell you how to turn that into a powerful mantra. Embrace fake it till you make it. It helped me build 3 businesses. Yeah, to an extent, right? Because you don't necessarily have to fake it, because you want it to be real. You want to start really building these skills, but like fake it, like as in jump off the bridge before you're ready. Yes, absolutely. You will fly. Sarah, give me just a second. I've got a knock at the door, so I'm going to pass it over. Encanto's so good. It's Onward. It is Onward. That's the one.
Yeah, I just shared the link to the scene where he literally just has to believe in himself, and that like he can do it, and that it like, and he just walks across this invisible chasm. I love these questions, guys, and this topic, so applicable. Yeah, so Sarah, Don can and weigh in on that like you don't know what you're doing. You do know what you're doing, or what you don't know, you are capable of learning.
Yeah, I love both of those. Sorry, I had she had her Ariel doll in the room here, so she had to come get Ariel. You don't know what you're doing. Yeah, so I don't have to know. I don't have to know. I'm learning, right? That's super powerful. I don't have to know what I'm doing. I'm learning, and I'll figure it out on the way, right? And yeah, Onward is great because there's this scene maybe that's the one that you linked there. There's this scene where, and the whole movie is perfect because the little guy, I forget his name, but he's the main character. He is the embodiment of the saboteur. And then his older brother is absolutely the genius, which for those of you who don't know, the genius is the opposite side of the saboteur. And so his brother's in his genius. Everything he does is intuitive. Everything he does is like based on a game that he plays. He's like, everything he's doing is just for fun. He's risking it all. And then his younger brother, the saboteur, is like terrified. Every move, he's like, we don't know what we're doing. And he's like, keeps telling him like, you can't base life on a game. And there's this scene where he has to bridge this vast chasm. And the only way he can do it is through magic. And so he takes his staff and he, creates this invisible bridge. But they tie a rope around his waist to keep him from falling. And so he has like this like backup, right? So he's less scared. Well, about halfway through this chasm, his rope falls off and he's like celebrating. He's like over this vast chasm. He's like, yes, I'm doing it. And he doesn't notice that the rope falls off until he gets to the very end, and he turns around and he looks at his brother and he sees that the rope is gone, and he falls. Well, he catches himself and he gets up and he's yelling at his brother and he's like, I needed the rope. And his brother's like, did you need the rope? And the truth is that you don't need the rope. You don't need to know what you're doing, right? We have a lot more fun when we don't know what we're doing. I have found working on this mindset this week has been very good at moving mental fog. Yeah, Absolutely. It's huge for clarity because the whole point of the saboteur is to keep you in inaction. And one of the ways that it does that is through brain fog because you're just overloaded. And it's almost like a constipation of the mental state because like you just get backed up with inspiration and ideas that you're not taking any action on. And then you don't know, then you're just stuck in it. Like you don't even know what the next step is.
Yeah. And for anybody who can resonate with that, which I very much can, I'm like a visionary, which means I get lots and lots of ideas, but you can't do all the ideas, right? Like you can have all the ideas, but you can't execute all the ideas all at once. And so one of the practices I found is really helpful is just creating like an idea list. And we share a to-do list and it literally has a section for ideas. And it is so helpful to just get them out of the ether, out of my brain and onto paper so that I can just say, hey, it's there. If I ever have capacity for it, it's right there. Like I can take action on it, but I don't need to take up space up here because up here has got enough going on. And so if you get in the habit of just like writing down, and Dawn and I can both, we both do this. We have notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks of just like daily like things, and I keep them because every once in a while I'll like flip through and I'm like, oh shit, that was an awesome idea. Like I'm so glad that I wrote that down. But once I did write it down, it was gone up here because it was on paper, right? And so that is what I found to be one of the best ways of getting rid of that mental fog. It's really just like honoring the fact that I have all these great ideas, but they don't all need to be acted upon right now.
Yeah, for sure. Sarah, how does that feel in your body when you say, I don't need to know? What does that feel like? Because you were the one that wanted the affirmation, right? So let me know how that feels for you. And guys, what did you think about our call today? Tell me, was this super helpful? How are you feeling now?
Yeah, like what did you learn? What tools are you walking away with? Is there anything that stood out for you as being perhaps the most impactful part of what we talked about today?
And feel free to unmute and just chat with us if you want. Yes, I think I need more practice because the stab immediately comes right. Yes, Sarah, I love this so much. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable. Because it's true. It absolutely will fire back. And that's the stab. It's just going to it's relentless. And what you'll find as you become more familiar with it is years down the road, when you've really been doing this work, the saboteur still doesn't shut up. And it's still, and it'll find anything. That's the thing is, I've done a lot of work on the front end, and now my saboteur finds the absolute silliest things to like stall me in any way. And it's grabbing from it's like straws. I can almost just laugh at it now because when it comes up, I'm like, that's just silly. Like, I'm not going to let that stop me from doing what I want to do. What are you talking about? Would love the slides as a referral to look back on. Yes, I will be sure to include those.
Yeah, the whole thing will be in recorded events. So
Yes.
the slides and the rewatch, the replay.
Yeah.
And then if you purchased a ticket instead of being a member, we will send it directly to you in the Facebook event.
Yeah. And Sarah, one other key here for the SAB coming right back at you is why it's important to start with acceptance before you move directly into affirmations. This is why affirmations tend to take a really long time for the unconscious to grab a hold of and to accept as truth versus action is almost immediate. And acceptance is also almost immediate for the unconscious to grab a hold of. So,
yeah.
And guys,
and it's just like you would,
no, go for it. Go for it.
I was just saying, it's just like you would talk to your child. Like, my little one is starting to have, she's starting to play like video games. She's getting the dexterity. She's 5 and she's very frustrated because she's not as good as her sister who's 9. Right. And so the first thing I do is I understand it's frustrating that you can't play at the same level that your sister can. Right. So I'm teaching her that the very first thing to do when you have heightened emotions like that is to accept it, to acknowledging, recognizing yeah, this is frustrating. This is a rough, space to be in. You're not as good as your sister at this yet because you're still learning. And so acceptance, that first step, helps build the platform for what comes next.
Oh gosh, Roger, that's wonderful. Love to you on your healing journey. And yeah, Sarah, thanks for being a part of this. Guys, if you want more support, we have a couple of things for you. I am putting together a 12-ish week program. We're calling it the Alchemy of Life and Business, and this will be just around mindset and these metaphysical tools and how they can benefit you in your life and your business. So you can email me to join the wait list for that. You can also email me. I do have one-to-one mindset intensives available. So those are just 1 hour long sessions where we can sit down and really talk about you, focus on exactly what's going on for you, and custom tailor a plan for you to get out of whatever's keeping you stuck. And I have one last quote here: the exaggerated esteem in which my life work is held makes me very ill at ease. I feel compelled to think of myself as an involuntary swindler. And that was Albert Einstein.
Amazing. Oh my God. And boy, do I feel it. It takes a lot to stand in front of very intelligent, very accomplished individuals like all of you and say like, hey, I have stuff that I can teach you. Because I mean, I feel like I'm out here just fucking figuring shit out too, right?
Same.
Like right?
Same.
Most of what's in the academy, if not all of it, is literally the result of me like falling on my face and learning how to do things. And so for me to stand up here and be like, hey, I've got something for you, I can teach you things, oftentimes has me feeling like you all are exaggerating the esteem over here. Like I'm just
Yeah.
out here like I'm an involuntary swindler over here. I'm getting that
We're
t-shirt,
all just
involuntary
winging it.
swindler.
Yeah, just winging it. Yeah, guys. So feel free to reach out if you want more, if you want to join the wait list, or if you want to hop into a mindset intensive. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you guys so much for showing up and hanging out with us. And I hope you got some really juicy stuff out of this. Let me see. Nothing else in the chat. Oh, we got one more in the chat here. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.